Hello and welcome to the Musical Instrument Investigator. Today we're on the website French auction portal Intershare and we're going to have a look at the latest auction by Baecque Auction House. This is an auction house that we've looked at before, and they have an auction of musical instruments coming up on the 20th of December. It's the 18th today, so a couple of days left to go. Looks like it could be quite an interesting auction, a few different kind of types of things for sale. There's 218 lots, which is a fair amount, so we shall try and whiz through this as quickly as possible. Looks like the buyer's premium is 30%, so that's a fair amount. That's what you pay on top of the final hammer price. Do remember that this is a French auction house, so if you are bidding outside of France, it might be import, export fees, shipping, CITES restrictions, all of that kind of fun stuff. So before we start, just like to say, if you do enjoy these videos, please consider subscribing, like or comment, because it really does help the channel quite a lot. This is also probably the last auction video of 2023. I think we're kind of done with most of them unless I manage to find another one somewhere in the ether, but this is probably the last one. I'll try and do some other videos in between if I can, but in terms of auctions, this might be it. So without further ado, I think let's just have a look and see what we have in this auction. So violin Lebert workshop there, 1927, 130 to 180 euros. Looks in a bit of a funny state. Got a JTL here, nothing too crazy. Pictures are not too bad though, 250 to 300 euros. Baecque violin, 180 to 200 there with a Breton iron mark. We're going to see a lot of French stuff I think in this auction. Violin with Sig Mingazi Ravenna label. Okay, missing top knot, 350 to 400 euros there. A few more pictures, kind of difficult to tell from those. Oh, we kind of missed on that. I'm getting ahead of the game. An anonymous French violin at 20th century in the style of Colin Mazar. Quite interesting back there. 380 to 400 euros on that. Mid-19th century French violin with Laurent Thomas iron mark. Does look very typically French, that 4 to 500, 360 length of back. Another JTL violin there, 900 to 1000. That seems maybe a bit optimistic. French violin by Colafille, the end of the 18th century. Okay, with an iron mark, 700 to 1000 euros. Doesn't look too bad. It's got some worm and other stuff going on there. Let's see what else we got here. Another Baecque violin around 1900. Fairly standard there. Got a Breton model by JTL. Let's get nothing too crazy there. German violin made at the beginning of the 20th century with a Tononi label. 280 to 300 euros on that. Doesn't look in too bad a condition, to be fair. 20th century violin with a Breton label. Fairly standard stuff. Antonio Lorenzi violin made in Saint Raphael around 1930, 400 to 600 euros on that. Kind of interesting back. 360 length there. Right, got a violin by Jean-Baptiste Colin Mazar, 1800 to 2000 euros, 1951. Kind of Guarneri model. Interesting choice of wood there for that. And that's actually fairly nice violin. You'll have to do a bit of setup work and things, but it doesn't look too bad. Bit of varnish problems there. 354. That's quite a good length of back there. So Lebert violin there. It's all fairly standard so far. A beautiful violin by Charles Galliard, a student from Ghent, made in Paris around 1830. 12,000 to 15,000 euros there. It's got a certificate there. This seems maybe a little bit high to me. Thuvenel violin there, 19th century, 900 to 1000. Needs a bit of work. Anonymous French violin, late 19th century. Okay. Violin with the Nicholas Bertolini label. Violin made by Paul Blanchard in 1904. 7,000 to 8,000 there. Original invoice from 1909. Okay, that's kind of interesting. I think they might need some better pictures in the future for some of this stuff. Looks kind of interesting, but I don't think I would ever pay that much for it. German violin, circa 1920. Fairly standard. French bow from the same period. Okay, let's have a look. Well, could be worth the cost, I suppose. Paul Mangenot violin, 1935, 1500 to 1800. Violin by Gustave Villaume, made in Nancy, 2000 to 2200. Violin signed Breton, so with a bow. Anonymous German violin with illegible handwritten mark, Cologne, 1777. Not any good close-ups of that. Quite square shoulders. French violin in Miracle, JTL. Violin with the label Carolus Helmer. Restored condition. 354 length of back there. You can see where that heel has been repaired there. Violin by Emile Blondelet, 1910, 800 to 1,000 euros there. Beautiful violin made by Paul Cowell in Nantes, 38 to 4,000. Looks good, good condition. Pictures aren't really doing any of these things justice, I don't think. Workshop of Liam Mougenot there, 4 to 500. That's fine. 20th century violin with the Carlos Carletti label. Very thick edge work on that. It's a bit odd. Violin made in Miracle around 1930. Leon Mortin violin, 550 to 850 there. Violin from the workshop of Marc Lebert, 900 to 1,000 on that. Violin sold and finished in the workshop of Jean-Frédéric Schmidt, 1969, 1,000 to 1,200 on that. Quite nice back. German violin with the Grancino label, 250 to 300 euros on that. Louis Delignon violin, Miracle, 1945. Okay, interesting year. 2,500 to 3,000. That's quite nice back on that. 357 length of back. That's not too bad. Very good condition. 2,500 to 3,000. Interesting. Handmade violin of semi-modern manufacturer, 1960-1970. Okay. Violin made by Mortissier around 1830. 700 to 1,000. And it's got a fair bit of restoration work. We see lots of this kind of stuff in the Violins auctions, 358 length of back. Don't know, maybe seems the estimates a little bit high, but maybe not. Anonymous violin made in Mirko around 1920 in the style of Amadei Dieudonné. 700 to 800, not particularly nice. Another anonymous violin with a pretty shaped wooden box. Yeah, not really. Interesting 18th century violin from the Castiglieri Gaffino school, bearing the label Mended by Pons Luthier in Grenoble 1792. Instrument to be restored with table fractures 1800 to 2000. So that's that kind of odd shape there. Quite a nice back. It's had a lot of problems, clearly. Scroll looks a bit curious from the front. Yeah, not sure about that. It's definitely more interesting than some of the other bits, that is for sure. Breton violin there. Much the same as we've seen before. Violin signed Grand Gérard. Violin bearing a Martis label. Jean-Baptiste Collat violin 1897, 1000 to 1200. These can be pretty good. Mirko violin there. Breton, there's a lot of Breton stuff flowing about. The Mirko violin. Right, on to the next page. 2 of 5. Quite a lot of violins. I think there might be some other instruments somewhere. 18th century French violin with a handwritten label Racmode par Bazelère Luthier in Versailles 1787. Framed head 3 to 3,500. Just think this is way too high an estimate. Personally, Mirko violin, 19th century, Ironmark FS Jean. Not particularly exciting. 18th century violin bearing Maggini Brescia label, 355. Interesting double purfling. Hard to say. Interesting that they've taken the back out of the peg box there. Violin by JTL 1900, 1000 to 1200. That seems also optimistic. Some funny varnish stuff going on there. Violin made in Mirko 1830, did low. It's quite a nice back. 1200 to 1400 on that. Yeah, that's got some charm. 362 though, it's the big French size. Paul Maginot violin, Mirko 1924. Quite nice wood there for the scroll, that's quite nice. 357, length of the back, not too bad. Beautiful violin by Claude Chevrier, Mirko 1830s, 1840s. It's all these kind of similar shape, this kind of Didier Nicolas Aine kind of shape. 1500 to 2000 on that. I just think it's still a bit much. Interesting violin, Cardinet Mirko 1000 to 1200. Once again, it's also similar. German Baroque violin made in the mid 18th century, labelled Andreas Lawful Klingenthal of 347. Interesting size there. That is in a bit of a funky condition though. Quite like the front, quite like those F holes. Interesting. 700 to 800 does seem a bit optimistic. Violin made by Henri Thuvenel 1820, 1200 to 1500. Once again, looking pretty similar. A lot of instruments from that period. The Mirko violin. 2 violins here. Kind of bargain bucket stuff there. 20th century Baecque violin. Very kind of standard violin made in Baecque in the Layanti workshop. Early 20th century violin. Another Baecque thing, to be expected really from a French auction. Another Baecque violin. And another one of these Bretons, so really seen quite a lot of these. Mark Lebert there. Let's have a look at this. Layanti workshops again. It's all fairly similar. Violin made in the Layanti workshop, so yeah, we're seeing a whole range of the different things that they would make. Another Baecque violin. Another Layanti stuff. Violin probably made in the Levesque workshop in Montcloun. Violin by Charles Jean-Baptiste Colomazan, 1936. Kind of really interesting Guarneri-ish model. Wow, that's quite a strong colour varnish there, 1200 to 1500. That might be popular. More Baecque stuff. 3/4 JGL there. Another 3/4. Another 3/4 by Grand Père. 3/4 Baecque again. More 3/4 Baecque. So I've got a few 3/4s here without images, it seems. That's a bit odd. But more 3/4 stuff here that's not super exciting. JGL. Nicolas Violin, let's have a look at that. 1400 to 1500 on that. Is anyone really gonna pay that for a 3/4? I don't know. It's possible. Or 3/4 Breton, half size Medifino. Let's have a look at this. Anonymous violin Baecque 1850. 70 to 100. That's a bit more reasonable. Needs a lot of work, obviously. Half size violins here, more half size. Quarter size violin made in Baecque there, 1920. 100 to 120. That's like kind of not too bad for a quarter size. Mute violin, 1900. Baecque head and neck. It's a bit crude looking. It's a violin case there. Double case for violins. Viola made by Augustin Clodeau. 391 length of back, 2000 to 2200. It's kind of fairly nice back. Bit of work needed to be done there. Still seems a bit expensive. Looks like we're on to some bows here. Violin bow Baecque school there. See what else we've got here. Late 19th century bows. 3 of Abele. I think this is nothing super interesting. Hang on, what we've got here. Simon Frère violin bow. 6 to 8,000 on that. And quite a few pictures. Okay, not too bad. Another violin bow. Simon Frère. 3.5 to 3.8. Violin bow by Thomasin. Got some heavy wear there. Lebert bow here. Bazin, as we'd expect to see. Morizon Frère. Mozart Workshop there. 2 Abiel wood bows there. A violin with a Vora mark, looking slightly curious. So another bows without pictures there. JHL bow there. Looks a bit worse for wear. Mark Lebert. Anonymous German bow. Violin bow of the German school, signed Tort. Violin bow of the German school, signed A.L. Sander. Whole load of bows, set of 17 RE France bows. Okay, interesting. 100 to 150. Eight RE France bows. Cello bow in there as well. Violin bow of the German school there. 22 different carbon violin and cello bows. Okay, interesting. Whole load of different bows there. Violin bow from the Baecque school. Another bow. Full size violin bow here. And we have a cello, student cello, 1970-1980. Got a cello bow from the German school, Abiel wood, signed Tort. Modern cello case there. Interesting wrought iron cello stand. I've got double bass attributed to Émile Boulangino at the beginning of the 20th century. 11,000 to 12,000 euros. Belonged to double bassist who accompanied Colette Magny for 5 years and played in concerts with Louis Sclavis. Okay, interesting. Not sure on the, that's an interesting picture, not sure on the current value of French double basses. Be interesting to find out more. Banjolin there from Stella. We're on to other instruments now. Concert mandolin from Romana. Lombard mandolin. Suzuki mandolin there. Neapolitan style mandolin. Romanian one. Another kind of Italian Neapolitan style mandolin. Mandolin Jerome Workshops. Lute-shaped body mandolin by Louis Paternotte. Concert mandolin Jerome Workshop. None of these are super exciting. Neapolitan mandolin by Catania Carmelo. Flat mandolin French by R. Garelli. French mandolin, the 20th century, Phoebe brand. Neapolitan type mandolin. German Kurtzstadt lute guitar. Double 6-string theorbo lute guitar by Herman Carlson Levin, made in Sweden. Yeah, they did like these type of kind of theorboed guitars in Sweden. Pretty cool. 200 to 300 euros. I think that's kind of not too bad, to be honest. Some guitars, Aria, Modern Lindo, Washburn, nothing too crazy. Yamaha Morris folk guitar. Let's have a look at this French romantic guitar around 1880. 200 to 300, nothing super crazy, but that is a fair estimate. Romantic guitar, anonymous, made in Baecque, 1830. Needs a bit of work. Fair estimate though, I think. Ibanez classical, load of other classicals here. Some kind of generic things. Got a Messer Boogie dual caliber DC3 amplifier. Some parts of drum kits here, Gretsch, etc. Sonor bits as well. So a whole different stuff. Bugle by Henri Selma, modern cornet there. cornet by Guatro. Master's horn by Francois Perrinet is quite nice. Good make of horn, 250 to 300 there. Antoine Courtois slide trombone. Another one here. Plastic slide trombone there. Tenor saxophone by Henri Selmer. As I always say, if there's saxophones, there's almost always a Selmer, especially in the French auctions, 2,500 to 3,000 euros. And Mark 6. Interesting. Anonymous brass baritone saxophone, 1875, 120 to 150. It's an interesting one. American baritone saxophone, engraved King Zephyr. Brass soprano saxophone there by Millereau. Soprano saxophone Buffet Crampon. Rosewood oboe by Muller Cousin. Rosewood oboe from Buffet Crampon. Clarinet in E flat. Boxwood clarinet by Piatet in Lyon. 700 to 800 euros on that. That's quite nice. Silver plated clarinet by Pelisson Guinot and Blanchon. Clarinet in B, signed major. Clarinet in B, Buffet Crampon. Yamaha transverse flute. 800 silver flute from Alfred G. Badger in New York. 800 to 1,200 on that. Silver metal flute. Boehm system, set of 3 flutes there. Got a diatonic accordion by Paolo Soprani. Hohner 128 20 bass piano accordion there. Whole load of different bits and pieces here. Got a tabwa DR Congo. Okay, like kind of thumb piano type thing. Tsogo from Gabon, kind of harp. That's interesting. Kuba DR Congo. It's like a drum. And Uldeme people, northeastern Cameroon. Kwerende harp. Chamba, Nigeria. Cowbells. Another chamba there. Fang from Gabon. Dance and divination rattles. Pygmies, aka Lobe region, Central Africa. Rare Sansa with 8 tabs. Cameroon Royal Bell. Okay, some interesting world musical instruments here. A Fang by Gabon. Dance and divination rattle. Bambara from Mali. Transverse horn. Luba from DR Congo. Dance and divination rattle. A Senufo from the Ivory Coast. A harp lute. Let's have a look at this. Quite interesting. Central and West African set of 7 musical instruments. A Gogo Kaguru from Tanzania. Limba, 30 tongues. Nedundu slot drum, astonishing with its trapezoidal and curved shape. It's kind of interesting, 400 to 600 on that. Baule, Republic of Ivory Coast, large Awoko scraper. Okay. Balmoon, Cameroon, dance and divination rattle. Sao, Chad, late 19th to early 20th century, internal clapper bell with curved shapes. 200 to 400. That's really beautiful, actually. That is very cool. I like that. Yeah, very interesting. Zande people, Central Africa. Okay, Linga Yanguera slot drum. Edo, Republic of Benin, late 19th century. Clapper bell. That's also really pretty cool. 300 to 500. Some really interesting things here. Senufo, Burkina Faso. Wasamba. That's a type of sistrum. That's kind of quite curious. West Africa, mid 20th century. Lost wax bronze bell. And a few other bits and pieces. Thailand, imposing bronze bell for elephant. Okay, with double function. Okay. Thailand, superb Ranat Ek xylophone. double-sided Tibetan drum here. An oud made in Tunis in 1976 by Luthier Belasfar. See, is that the only picture? That's unfortunate. It would have been nice to see a few more pictures of that. Arabic oud signed SMA. Polychrome top. I've never seen an oud look like that before. Looks like it might have been decorated afterwards. Ukrainian alto domra with winter decoration. Sakwashi, Japan, made in 1703. Wow, 1800 to 2000. That's definitely curious. Japanese shakuhachi bamboo, kind of flute type thing. Another Japanese instrument there. Biwa, traditional Japanese instrument. Ooh, wrong thing. Early 20th century. And a rare tambour from northern Afghanistan, late 19th century. Then to finish it off, Scottish types of bagpipes, probably Indian manufacture from the 1970s. Interesting. Well, okay, that ended up being quite a diverse auction in the end. Actually, not too bad for probably the last auction of 2023 that we'll look at. Some fairly interesting violins and some really interesting world musical instruments, so definitely worth checking out. I'll put a link in the description as always. Check it out and see what you think. So thanks a lot for watching, and I shall catch you next time. Ciao.